those. Okay. Now let's get started here, students, without wasting any time. So what is economic efficiency? So economic efficiency, as the word suggests, is about making best possible use of resources, right? Now, resources are scarce, and economies or countries want to make most of these resources. Therefore, it's important that whatever is being produced, that's produced with least possible resources, right? Without also compromising on the quality of the good, right? So economic efficiency is important to maximize the output, right? To maximize the output from the resources available. Because think about this, increasing resources is not an easy thing to do. Maximize output from use of resources, right? Use of resources. So that's the bottom line, right? And why countries place so much emphasis on efficiency, right? Why is efficiency important? So this is linked to the fact that every country has limited resources. Are you getting me, right? So Pakistan, USA, no matter how rich, how big, how small you are, every country, every economy has limited resources. Therefore, whatever resources it has, it needs to make the best possible use, right? So basic economic problem exists, and to solve, kind of not completely solve, but still to better work around basic economic problem, countries have to be economically efficient, right? Which basically means maximizing output from use of resources. Is everyone clear on this, right? Okay. Now to do this, right? To achieve this idea, maximizing output, everything has to be produced, right? All production has to be achieved with least possible use of resources, right? So if you're wasting resources, if you're, doing that, then obviously that won't be achieved. All production should be undertaken with least possible use of resources. Should be undertaken with least possible use of resources. Okay, are we good on this? Any confusion? Okay, now we'll move on, students. Now we'll move on and we'll talk about that, how we actually calculate or how we actually measure economic efficiency, right? So economic efficiency has basically two components: productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Now, productive efficiency is producing something at the lowest possible cost, right? So we will first discuss productive and then we'll come to allocative. So productive efficiency, by the way, do remember that a country has to achieve both components to have economic efficiency. So you can't say that, if productive efficiency is there, but allocative is not there, then it's not economically efficient. For economic efficiency, both components of economic efficiency have to be present for an economy to be defined as economically efficient, right? Now, what is productive efficiency? Let me define that for you. Productive efficiency is producing goods at least possible cost. What we were talking about before as well. Producing goods and services, obviously, at least possible cost, okay? Right? Now, how do we measure this, right? It's just a definition. We still don't know how to measure whether a country is productively efficient or not. At least possible cost. Okay. Now, there's this one formula which you must have seen again and again, right? Here and there, right? So the very basic way to calculate efficiency is output divided by input. And I'll give you some examples and that will help you better understand, right? Now, how much output is produced with available amount of input, that is a good idea, that's a good way and simple method to measure productive efficiency. How so? Let me show you, right? Now, let's assume there are two factories, right? There are two factories that produce a certain type of product. Could be shoes, could be laptops, could be anything, right? So there is, let's say, there's factory A and then there's factory B, right? So let's say the total output produced by A is, let's say, 2000. The total output produced by B is, let's say, 1000, right? The inputs that two factories are using to produce their output could be laptops, clothes, shoes, anything, right? You can imagine about anything, right? So B is, let's say, using 500 units of labor to produce this, right? Output. And A is, let's say, using 1100 units to produce this output, right? Now, my question to you is, can you use this information to determine that which of the two businesses is more productive? Is there enough information on the screen right in front of you for you to determine that which of the two businesses will be more productive, right? Now, what you have to do, you don't have to do anything. You just need to apply this formula. When you apply this formula, what you get to see that 1000 divided by 500 is 2 units per unit of labor. So his B is producing 2 units of output. 2 units of output are being produced in B, factory B, with each unit of labor. Easy, any confusion so far, right? On the other hand, if you do this, right, the answer would be something less than 2, right? So perhaps 1.9. So 1.9 units, on the other hand, are being produced in factory A with each unit of labor. So think about this. If we assume that factor is each labor is being paid the same. Now, this is a very important thing that I'm about to explain you. So you have to listen carefully. If I assume that the two factories are located in the same country, perhaps in the same city, circumstances are the same, the nature of the good is the same, everything is the same, right? So can can we assume that the labor pay would be same in both the factories? Are you getting me? Like normally what happens if there are teachers teaching in private schools, right? So schools have to pay more or less similar salary. Why? Because if you don't pay them as much, what will teachers do? Teachers will leave for other schools which are paying them more. So I mean, it's a relatively realistic assumption to make, right? Because circumstances are the same, you're operating in the same city and so on and so forth, right? And same type of skills are being needed and all that, right? So if you assume that the wages paid to labor in both factories is same, then B is producing each unit of good with lower labor cost. B is producing each unit of the good with lower labor cost. Do you agree with me or not? Producing, so it has lower cost compared to A. Each unit with lower labor cost. Any confusion so far? Anything that's not clear, right? So that's the idea. That's the bottom line. That's what you need to remember here, right? So B is more efficient and therefore the cost of producing output at B is lower than A. Okay, now let's do a quick recap. We'll move forward from here. So economic efficiency is important, right? So economic efficiency is important. Why? Because every country has basic economic problem. What is basic economic problem? That you have limited resources and you have unlimited wants, right? So you can't produce everything that you need, but what at least you can do, what a country can do is to make best use of resources. So making best use of resources is basically economic efficiency. Now, economic efficiency is achieved, or it has two parts: productive and allocative, right? Now, productive efficiency is the first one that we are discussing here. Productive efficiency means producing goods, services at least possible cost. And then I asked you that how do we know if a business is producing something at least possible cost or not? The way to calculate that is through a formula that's written right here in front of you, right? So productive efficiency is output over input. So if this is maximized, the value of this formula is maximum, the cost would be minimum that we just saw, right? So let me write it down like this. When value of this formula is maximum, the cost of production would be minimum. Easy. Formula is maximized your cost, your meaning the business cost, your cost is minimized. Easy. Okay, now we'll move on and we will look at the graph for productive efficiency, right? Now let's move forward and let's look at the graph for productive efficiency. So productive efficiency graph is simply measured through average total cost. So the productive efficiency graph that we're about to look at is basically a business average total cost graph. Now, if you do know what average total cost is, that's great. If you don't, then I'll quickly tell you what it is. As the word suggests, average total cost. So what you need to do is to divide the total cost of a business, right? So it's written the short form of average total cost that we normally write is ATC, average total cost. What you have to do is to simply divide the total cost of a business with its output or total output, right? So total cost that it takes to produce something divided by how many units were being produced. So that will give you that on average, how much cost was spent on producing each unit of the good. So total cost divided by output will tell you on average how much cost was spent on producing each unit of the good. Okay. Now students, have a look at this. So you have y-axis, you have x-axis, right? So on the y-axis, you will have average total cost, which is calculated the way I've shown you over here. And on the x-axis, you will have quantity of output, right? Quantity of good, right? And so on. Okay. Okay. Now the shape of average total cost, which we discussed in our chapter 2, right, is a U-shaped graph. It's a U-shaped graph, right? So why is it a U-shaped graph? Quickly to tell you, right? It shows you economies and diseconomies of scale. Initially, when business increases its output from 0 to Q1, right? So initially when the business is producing more output, because if you move right on the x-axis, what is that? So if you're moving right on the x-axis, what's increasing? Quantity of the good. So if business initially produces more output, you can see that you will move from a higher point on the ADC curve to a lower point on the ADC curve, and then even a further lower point on the ADC curve, and so on forth until you hit the lowest point of the ADC curve. Easy. But after this output level Q1, which is the lowest point on the ADC curve, if a company still continues producing more, it will be moving higher points. It will be moving on to higher points on the ADC curve, which means the cost of production, average total cost of production will start to rise, right? So up till this part, it's what? It's economies of scale. As your average total cost is decreasing, what is economies of scale? When your average total cost decrease. And beyond the output level Q1, when your average total cost is rising, it's increasing, that's known as diseconomies. It's known as diseconomies of scale. Easy, we good on this? Right, okay. Now let's keep moving forward. Now through average total cost graph, we will see whether a business is productively efficient or not. Whether a business is productively efficient or not. Okay. Now, since I'm just removing this so that, okay. Okay. Now the idea is that let's say there are two possible curves, right? So simply speaking, Mumin, let me define that for you. Diseconomies of scale is when due to high production, the business average total cost starts to rise. Economies of scale is when due to greater output, the business average total cost starts to decrease. And diseconomies of scale is the opposite. So its definition would be when due to higher production, the business average total cost starts to rise. When the per unit cost rises. Exactly. Simple. Yeah. But do mention that due to higher output, because that's what it happens, right? So initially it's economies of scale, your average total cost decreases when you produce more, but after that it becomes too much output for the company to handle, right? And therefore, there are some factors that cause diseconomies of scale. Therefore, your average total cost starts going up. Okay, now students, if this is the graph for any business, right? Now what happens, you have to listen to this carefully, right? So at any point in time, a business has multiple ATC curves, or to put it in other words, at a certain point in time, a business can operate on different possible ATC curves, right? So there is ATC 1, there's ATC 2, and then there's ATC 3. Now, the idea is simple. At any point in time, a business should want to minimize its cost. At any point in time, a business should want to minimize its cost. So by looking at this graph, you tell me if the business has option to operate on ATC 1, ATC 2, and ATC 3. So which ATC curve would the business want to operate on, right? So the business would want to operate on ATC 3, obviously. Now, first thing that you have to understand, why is ATC a good option? right? Because no matter what output you produce, at every output, every possible output, ATC3 will give you the lowest possible cost combination. I repeat, no matter what output the company is producing, ATC3 will always give you the lowest possible cost combination. Yes or no? Is it making sense? Yes, perfect, right? So let's assume the company wants to produce Q1. Now, if you look at this output level and you just stretch, you take this dotted line up and then you connect with the three curves. So you can see that ATC3 might cost you, let's say $10. Each unit is being produced for $10. But since ATC2 is higher than this, so it would be something higher than 10, it could be perhaps, let's say 12. And the pink ATC1 is even higher. So the cost of producing each unit here would be even higher. So let's say $17 and so on and so forth, right? And this is not only Q1 output, it could be for any output, any random output I can choose here, right? And you'll see that ATC3 will always give you the lowest possible cost combination. Easy? Okay. Now, here's the thing. What a lot of students, so we do know that if productive efficiency is about minimizing your cost of production, then obviously ATC3 has to be productively efficient. I repeat, if productive efficiency is about minimizing the cost of production, then productive efficiency would be achieved on ATC3 and not on ATC2 or ATC1. That's pretty simple and obvious, right? Because we just saw that every output level will be produced lowest at ATC3 compared to 1 and 2. Okay, fair enough. But then what a lot of students get confused with, they say that only the lowest point of the lowest ATC is productively efficient. I'll repeat myself. Students think that only the lowest point, what's the lowest point on ATC3? Let's label it as A, right? So they say that only the lowest point on the lowest possible ATC curve is productively efficient, which is not correct. So every point, right? So all points on the lowest, the curve has to be the lowest, but all points on this ATC curve are what? All points on this ATC curve are productively efficient. Are you getting me, right? So that's basically about it. That's basically about it, that all points on the lowest possible ATC curve are productively efficient, right? And there is a special name for the lowest point of the lowest possible ATC curve. So you would say, have a look at this. So you will say that all points on the lowest possible ATC curve are productively efficient, which means A, C, B, D, all the ones that I've labeled and few others that I haven't labeled. But there's a special name for the lowest point of the lowest possible ATC curve, and that is known as X efficiency. So if a business is exactly operating on point A, that would mean that it's not only achieving productive efficiency. If a company or a business is operating on point A, it means that it's not only achieving productive efficiency, it's also achieving X efficiency. So it is producing at the lowest point it could have produced. It's producing at the lowest point it could have produced. Right. Yes, technically it would be, but it's an addition. It's basically something beyond productive efficiency. If you can achieve it, great. But even if you cannot, at least the company should try to be on the lowest possible ATC curve. Ideally, producing at A is ideal, but even if it's not operating on A, but it's operating on, let's say, G. And why would a company operate on G? Because it might need to produce more. So if a company needs to produce more because there's more demand in the market and they're producing Q4 output instead of, at point A, it would have been Q1. So if they have to produce Q4 because demand is more in the market, then even that is productively efficient. No worries. But obviously, if they produce Q1, that's even even better, right? Okay. Now, students, this is what productive efficiency is. We'll keep moving forward and we'll talk about allocative efficiency. Now, you have to listen to this carefully. Allocative efficiency is, where does the word allocation comes from, right? It comes from the word allocation. Allocative efficiency is coming from the word allocation of resources. And what was allocation of resources? Allocation of resources refers to which resources are being used to produce which goods. Which resources are being used to produce which goods, right? Easy? Okay. Now, since there is basic economic problem in every country, so it cannot produce everything it wants, it has to prioritize. A country needs to prioritize which products it should produce and which products it should not produce. It's as simple as that. So if you think about for instance, Pakistan, right? So Pakistan can, spend more on education, but if you spend more on education, it means that you have lesser resources to spend on defense, or you have lesser resources to spend on infrastructure, roads, or lesser resources to spend on healthcare, and the list goes on. So whenever you are spending more resources on one thing, that means lesser resources are available to be spent on other things. It's as simple, nothing complicated, right? Now, allocative efficiency says that an economy should produce goods that are most wanted, like most needed. How would we know which goods are most wanted? I'll tell you. An economy should produce products, let's do it products, should produce products that are most wanted and in optimal quantities, that are most wanted or needed. Most needed is a better word, I guess. Most needed, and these products should be produced in optimal quantities. Just a second, I'll take your comment. Products should be produced in optimal quantities, right? Optimal meaning appropriate, right? Or ideal, right? That's what optimal means. Okay, now let's see what we have over here, right? What about technical efficiency? Where does that fit, right? So technical efficiency is extension of productive efficiency, right? Are you getting me, right? So sorry. Technical efficiency, just give me a second, right? So
your technical efficiency is not in our syllabus.
it's, are you sure?
Yes, I have it open in front of me. All we need to know is productive, allocative efficiency, dynamic efficiency, and Pareto optimality.
Pareto optimality. Okay, sounds good. Okay. I'll also look at it. So if you're saying that you have gone through the syllabus and you know it's not, so then it's pretty, fine, great. I'll also verify this, Mubin, right? We good on this? Okay, so we'll do allocative efficiency, then we'll do Pareto and right? Okay, dynamic efficiency, yes. Okay, now let's think about this. What is allocative efficiency? Allocative efficiency, thank you, Amna. So allocative efficiency is when you are producing goods, and economy is producing goods that are most needed, and these products should be produced in optimal quantities, right? So there are two words that are very important over here, that focusing on goods that are more wanted or most wanted, and producing these products in optimal quantities, like in appropriate quantities, right? We good on this? Okay. Now, students, have a look at this. How do we get to find out that whether a business is allocatively efficient or not? Just like through the graph of average total cost, we saw that whether a business is productively efficient or not. Similarly, through another graph over here, we'll see whether a business is allocatively efficient or not, right? Now, what you do in this case is basically you make a graph for, I'll tell you, right? So on the y-axis, you will mention price slash cost. So you have price slash cost, and on the x-axis, you have quantity of the good, just like any other graph, right? Okay. Now, first thing that you have to do is to draw the market demand for any product, right? So let's say we are talking about how much output of phones, let's say, right? How much quantity of phones should Pakistan produce? That's a question, right? Should Pakistan produce 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 100,000, I don't know, whatever that amount might be. Okay. Now, the downward sloping is the market demand for phones, right? And the other curve that you need to add to this graph is your marginal cost. Now, what is marginal cost? Those who are confused or those who don't know or remember for sure what exactly marginal cost is, let me quickly tell you over here. Marginal cost is the increase in cost due to production of one more unit of the good. So the increase in total cost due to production of one more unit of the good is your marginal cost. And how we calculate this is change in cost, delta cost, divided by change in output. So due to production of one more unit of the good, how much your cost change, that is your marginal cost. Are you getting me? So think about this. If there is a hospital that's already in full capacity, now listen to me very carefully. If there is a hospital, I'm giving you a real life example of marginal cost, and that is completely full. There's no bed vacant, so no new patient can be accommodated, and so on and so forth. Right? Now, let's assume for some very special reason, they have to accommodate one more patient, even though the hospital is full, but they have to accommodate one more patient, right? So what would that require? What resources would that require if you have to accommodate one more patient? Perhaps you might need to get a special bed, like the patient's bed, whatever that bed is, right? You need to get a new bed. You might accommodate it in the existing rooms, but you at least you need a bed, first thing. Do you need more doctors? Perhaps not. Why? Because the same doctors can look after one more patient. I mean, do you need more medicines? I don't think so, right? So, but one thing that's needed for sure to have a patient accommodated, you can't make the patient sit on a sofa or sit on a chair, right? Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So simply speaking, the bare minimum cost that this hospital has to incur to accommodate that additional patient is to get the bed, special bed. And how much that cost, right? That is your marginal cost. So by producing one more unit of the good, output is increasing by one patient. How much was the rise in the cost? The bed might be 50,000 rupees, 60,000, whatever it is, that is your cost. Got it? Okay. Now, to measure whether a business is allocatively efficient or not, what you look at is that where the demand for the good is intersecting with the marginal cost. Now, this is very important, and I'll stress on this so that you completely understand, right? Now, students, my question to you is, right, if at this output level, have a look at this. This is the output level. This is the output level, right? That, let's say, the currently this business is producing. Now, how much is the marginal cost? Like, let's take some values so that you get a better idea, right? So let's say to produce or to accommodate, if we continue with the same example of hospital, right? To accommodate an additional patient, it costs you, let's say, $10, right? Because perhaps this is nothing additional. You just need some more medicines because you already have some spare bed and so on, right? So accommodating this second patient, let's sorry, to accommodate this second patient, let's say, right, could be the first one, second, whatever, right? So this patient has the marginal cost of how much? $10. You have everything, bed and everything, doctors, everything, but you might need some what? Medicines, right? And how much price would this patient pay to the hospital? So how do we get to find out? You connect this dotted line upwards to the demand curve, and you'll see how much price is being paid. Easy. How much price is being paid? Easy. Right, exactly. Then tell me if this is beneficial for the company to accommodate this patient. Is it beneficial for the company to accommodate this patient, right? If price is higher, right, 15, 13, whatever, right, it is beneficial. Exactly. Excellent, right? So if each patient is paying you $15 or let's say $100 at least, right, for each checkup, and it costs you only $10 to, treat that patient. So obviously it's beneficial, profitable for the business to do that. So it will accommodate that patient. Great. If we look at one more example and we move forward, let's say the third patient cost you slightly more, because as you can see, marginal cost is now upward sloping. So it would cost you something more than what the first patient costed you. So now let's say it's $15, and how much would it pay? It would pay something less, but still it's higher than the cost, right? So the third patient is paying the hospital $90, and the cost of treating this patient is 15. So it's still profitable, and the hospital should treat this patient. If this business is producing to the level, where price is equals to marginal cost. Now listen to me carefully, students. If this business, right, could be, let's say 7 looks too small, right? If this hospital, this business is treating patients or producing output to the extent where price and marginal cost are the same, then that is basically allocative efficiency. If you produce anything less, please listen to me. If a business produces anything less than 25 units, why are we stressing on 25? Because this is the point where price of the good is equals to its marginal cost. So if a business produces less than 25, like in this range, if it's producing something less than 25 in this range, this would be defined as underproduction. And if a business produces anything more than that, that would be what? Overproduction. But a business would never go beyond 25. Can anyone of you tell me why would a business never go beyond 25? Think for it for a minute and then tell me. Why would a business never?
Because it will not,
Yeah, sure.
because it will not be allocatively efficient.
I'm having trouble hearing you, but I think you're saying that
Because it will be allocatively efficient.
Because simply think about this. Beyond 25, what's happening? Marginal cost is greater than the price of the good, right? Right. I mean, that's also correct.
Loss.
It would be a loss, right? So any private sector, public sector has different objectives. So we can't say for sure that public sector would never produce more than price is equals to marginal cost. That's a different story altogether. But for a private business, it would never go beyond that point, because each additional output or patient or whatever it is, right? That's costing you more, $50 to treat, whereas the price that this guy would pay you is, is something less, right? So that is, let's say, $40 and so on. So you would not want to have that person onboarded, right? Easy, good. But yeah, anything, what happens in a lot of cases, let me tell you why underproduction takes place. Underproduction happens in market structures. Now think about this. As we move forward, we'll talk about all of this. Allocative efficiency is, first thing, is when a business produces at the output level where price equals marginal cost. That's the first thing that you need to know, right? So exactly at the point where price is equals to marginal cost, that output is known as allocatively efficient. So where price is equals to marginal cost, that output level in this case turns out to be 25 units. So if this business produces 25 units, that is allocatively efficient. If it produces less than 25, that is allocatively inefficient. First thing, it would never produce more than 25, most probably, if it's a private sector business, because it means that you're making a loss. It means that you make a loss then, right? And another thing I was about to say, right? Which type of businesses underproduce? We will see moving on that monopoly, all the market structures except for perfect competition will be allocatively inefficient. Why do they produce less? I'll tell you later on. But the idea is simple, that when they underproduce, they can get to charge higher prices. When they get to charge higher prices, they make more profit. That's why monopoly underproduces and produces at a point less than P is equals to MC. Easy. Are we good on this? Right? Are we good on this? Okay. Now moving forward, let's talk about the other two types, right? The other two types of efficiency that you need to know. Yes, Amna, you have a question? Yes.
So I was wondering if we could do the paper of 2020 or
Right, sure, we can do that. Paper of 2020, entire exam you want, or are there any particular questions you want help with?
Isn't like we can make points about the essays.
Yeah, exactly. That's the plan. And I was saying the same before you joined the class, that revising is important, students, but trust me, it doesn't help you much with the idea that, when you look at the past paper question, that is exactly when you have to imagine that what concept needs to be explained and in the answer to that question, and how you should explain that, and how much you should write, and what graphs you should add, and all these things, right? So, I mean, we'll quickly revise. So far, we have two topics. One, hopefully, we'll complete off with efficiency today, if not maximum by tomorrow. And then there's one more topic, consumer equilibrium, that will quickly revise. After that, I'll suggest that whichever topic you are having difficulty with, we choose topical questions. And it's not that we are doing just one or two, right? So we'll be doing good 7, 8 questions related to that topic, whether that be labor market, whether that be market, whatever it is, right? And then when you get to do all those questions topical, that is when you really get to apply your knowledge and see, right? Right. So Amna, can you do me a small favor? This way I don't remember. You also send me the names of all these in our group, in our WhatsApp group. So next time when we are doing a past paper, right, I know which exams you mentioned so that I open those, right? So that will really help. Please do that. Okay. Now, students, great, perfect. Now, there are two more concepts of efficiency that you need to know. One is dynamic efficiency and the other one is Pareto optimality. Now, these are not completely separate. Now, listen to me very carefully, students. These two concepts of efficiency, dynamic and Pareto optimality are not completely different from productive and allocative. Instead, let me write the names first. Instead, these two, which I'm writing on the board, are extension of productive and allocative efficiency. I repeat myself, students. Dynamic efficiency and Pareto optimality are not new concepts or completely different types of efficiency. These are in fact extension. You understand what extension means? I mean a further development of the same thing. It's a further extension of that. Are you getting? So dynamic efficiency is extension of productive efficiency, as we will see, extension of productive efficiency, and Pareto optimality is extension of allocative efficiency. Easy. So efficiency, right? And this is extension of allocative efficiency. Easy. Any confusion? Good, students? Okay, now think about this. What is dynamic efficiency? So dynamic efficiency, if you take business study, you might know there is this concept. I'm just trying to introduce, right? Because that way it better helps you to understand. There's a concept in business studies that says lean production, right? Now, what is lean production? Lean production is when a business is constantly looking for ways and methods. Listen to this. Lean production is basically, it's nothing in particular that what should you do to achieve lean production. It doesn't say that, okay, cut on your stock supplies or, things like that. No, it's not something specific. But lean production is basically when a business is constantly looking for ways and methods to minimize its wastage, right? So wastage of what? Wastage of resources, right? Could be raw material, could be labor, could be land, could be anything. Wastage of any resources, obviously discouraged. It's not a good thing for a business, obviously. So lean production is when you're minimizing your wastage and introducing methods and introducing more efficient methods of production, right? That could be a lot of different things. Like if you train your labor to minimize wastage, that would also be part of lean production. If you start using more advanced machine that produces more output in less time, that could also be lean production, right? More efficient production process. So anything that minimizes your wastage and helps you uh, produce something more efficiently, that's basically what lean production is. Easy. And this is exactly what dynamic efficiency says. So what dynamic efficiency says that once a business has achieved productive efficiency, listen to me very carefully. Dynamic efficiency says that once a business has achieved productive efficiency, which means that the business is operating on its lowest possible ADC curve, that's not enough. Dynamic efficiency says even if a business has achieved productive efficiency by operating on the lowest possible ADC curve, that's not enough. And instead, it should be constantly, that business should be constantly on the outlook, right? That how it can reduce its cost even further. That how it can reduce its cost even further, right? Easy. We good on this, right? So how would it do that? There could be a couple of different things as I just explained you, right? Minimizing wastage, introducing new process, introducing new machinery, and so on. It's the shift of average total cost curve downward further due to technological advancements or skilled labor. Exactly. Good way to sum it up, Amna. Excellent. So further downward shift in the, okay, students, this class is a link is about to end. We have just a small concept left. So